Have two new videos for you. One is on perfect prospect profile, the P3 concept. And the second one is the workshop video for defining the P3. So I hope you enjoy each of them. They're separate, but really come as a pair. So the first will explain the concept of perfect prospect profile, and the second will show you how to define and develop it with your team. Enjoy. Okay, so in the intro we said we're going to be talking about the perfect prospect profile today. And to kick things off, I want to talk about the bet, which is a bet I've been making with rooms full of executives, either CEOs, CFOs, CSOs. And it's simply this. Right now, I will bet a big number that you have good people working hard, trying to get business you don't want. And again, I've been making this bet for years, and everybody sits there and nods their head, and it's like, what is going on? How could this possibly be happening? And one of the reasons we think it's happening is what we want to talk about in this opening part here. And that is when you look at your total addressable market, it's a population, and every population falls across, I'm sure you recognize the standard distribution curve. And when you get out 3 sigma, 3 standard deviations on either side of the mean, you essentially got your whole market. So with that, we want to look at your total addressable market in terms of business you do want versus business that doesn't want you. And over here on the first side are folks who are likely to buy from you, and the first sigma out on the other side, they're unlikely to buy from you. They're not going to lay down in front of the steamroller. They're just unfavorably inclined. Over here on the left, these folks are favorably inclined. The next group is very favorably, or let's say super inclined. And this third group out, they just love you. You know, they're super loyal. You're entrenched or embedded with these folks, and effectively they'll buy whatever you have to offer. They'll buy everything. On the right, past unlikely, these next folks are super disinterested in your offerings. And finally, this last group, if the ones on the left love you, these folks, maybe they don't hate you, but they sure don't like you. And said another way, they're strong for, loyal to your competition. So if we can sort of agree on those general terms, what we see happening and what doesn't make sense, but I think feeds this winning bet that I've been making, is folks approaching the market with their sales and marketing efforts like this, basically treating everybody the same. And you'll hear folks talk about, sort of spreading their budget or their efforts like peanut butter, which means just evenly across everything, which when you look at it in the context of this, left and right of this distribution curve, doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. The old joke, I know we're throwing away 50% of our marketing budget. The problem is I don't know which 50%. Well, when you look at this curve, I guess you could say this 50% is the half you're throwing away. So another way you might consider spending those resources would look something like this, where you simply don't want to be investing a whole lot. Over here, you could say that this money, if they are not going to buy anything from you ever, is totally wasted. And probably some share of the energy and resource in this group is also wasted. You could also make the argument that since the folks on the left are always going to buy from you, some portion of this may also be considered wasted. But we don't want to suggest for a moment you want to ignore those folks. What we do think you want to do is treat them differently. What would be special for this group? Since they're special to you, how can you do something special for them? Unlike, say, your phone company or your cable company, where they make these stupendous offers for new customers, and it'd be like 3 free phones or whatever, but not for existing customers. It's like, oh man, which is why they also have such low customer sat ratings. Anyway, without going too far down that rabbit hole, this area would seem to be your sweet spot where you want to spend probably the most, and you definitely want it falling off by the time you get to the right side here. So one of the things we said in the prospecting video is you always want to have a list of prospects, and right after you close a deal, that's the best time to be putting things into your funnel. So how do you go about building that list? And I think this is a useful graphic or visualization of how you may want to start thinking about creating that list and establishing priorities. So most folks, when they segment the market, do so on the basis of demographics. And I think everybody's familiar with those. Those are basically anything that's numeric. So the size of the company, either number of employees or total revenues, their industry by SIC code, or their geography by zip code. Those are the kinds of things that people tend to segment markets on, and it's perfectly reasonable to do so. But another way of looking at this is psychographics, which may or may not be a term you're familiar with. Most people know demographics, which are numeric. Psychographics are just the opposite. They're things that are not numeric or quantitative. They are more qualitative. They're more values and attitudes, attributes, things like they're honest, they're communicative, they are smart and or innovative. Okay, those are the kinds of things that typically come up when you start talking about favored customers or folks that we get along with. And it is about getting along, because the closer they are to your perfect prospect profile, and clearly people who score high on both of these scales would be perfect prospect profiles. And that means the folks here in the center of the target would be your perfect prospect profiles. Birds of a feather tend to do good business together. And the point of all this is the closer they are to your profile, the better the fit. And this is important, the easier the sale. So imagine, if you would, that you have 5 criteria that are demographics, 5 criteria that are psychographics. If you rated those on a scale from 1 to 10, then you could have a total possible score of 100. And the list that you're building should start at 100 and work your way down. So think of this target as helping set priorities. The yellow here would be your highest priority, and the reds here your second, and the blue here not only is your last priority, but they may not even be a priority for you. You may want to just have them be in some nurture program, or clearly some lead warming program that marketing is running, as opposed to sales outreach. But that depends on the size of your market and your list and so on. Anyway, with that in mind, we go back to our distribution curve. If you are now looking at a total possible score of 100, maybe these folks are 100 down to 80. And these folks would be, 79 down to 60. And these folks, 59 down to 40, less than 40. Maybe you just want to forget about them, or deal with them in some other more general, cost-effective, low-cost way. So that's the idea of perfect prospect profile. And what we're going to do in the next segment is actually show you how to run a workshop to define your perfect prospect profile. Looking forward to that. I hope this is useful.